Okay, so let's get started on our Earth Day project. It won't be too complicated, and you could adjust it as you want. Use your own creativity. You don't have to do it exactly as I'm doing it. I'm just giving you an idea of an Earth Day project, art project. Okay, so we want to put a big circle in the middle. We don't want it to touch the sides of our paper or the top and bottom of our paper. My paper is going portrait, so vertically, not landscape. Horizontally, we're going to do portrait today. If you have a plate or something round that is the right size that you want to trace it, go for it. I get it. I don't have anything handy, so I'm going to make my own circle and try to make it as cylindrical as possible. And I'm just turning my paper because I want the distance between the sides to be the same on all four sides. I think I'm pretty good. Okay. Does that look pretty circular to you? Hopefully. That's a little spot I gotta fix. Got some little hairy hairs I gotta get rid of. Hopefully you can see it. Let me go over and make it a little darker for you. Now that I think I have the right shape, I'm okay with making it a little darker. Otherwise, we always draw light till we know it's right. But I also want you guys to be able to see it, so I'm definitely going to make it darker. Okay, good enough. There we go. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is in the bottom third of my circle. So if I broke it into 3 pieces this way, horizontally across my circle, I want it in the bottom third. And I just kind of want a soft little, think of it like rolling hills. It's not a perfectly straight line, but it's not super wavy. It's just a little bend in it, or soft rolling hills. Then I'm going to come down a little bit further, maybe 1.5 inches or so, and I'm going to make little waves. I go up to the right, and I want to point there. I'm going to come down to the left and stop. Go up to the right, down to the left, and stop. Make little points and stop. Down in here, if you want, you could add some fish. They could be super simple fish. Triangle, circle, or oval, excuse me. Triangle attached to an oval. A little eye, could be that simple. You know, if you want to get creative and maybe you got some sort of octopus down in here and he's coming up. I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Oh, you get the idea though. Okay. I don't think I get all 8 of his legs in there. We'll give him some big eyes right here. Maybe it looks more crabbish than a... You might want to look up some pictures for that guy. But you could do whatever you want down here. Okay. And then in this little section between the wave and the rolling hill, I'm thinking of it like blowing wheat fields. And so we're just going to give that impression of it by just doing some little swirls. So it's just a curvy line that swirls into itself. You can go the other direction, swirls into itself. Curvy line. It's kind of like what you see on Starry, Starry Night, if you've ever looked at that painting. Something like that. Then I'm going to give some more dramatic rolling hills, but not quite mountains. So I'm going to go up about halfway up my circle. And I'm just going to make a line that comes down and stops. Make some line on the other side that comes down and stops. Now I want some dramatic mountains in the upper half. So we're at the halfway point. The rest of it's going to be up here is going to be dramatic mountains. So the first thing I'm going to do is start over here. You can start it all the way to this corner, or you can come in a little bit. I'm going to come in a little bit, I think. And I'm going to do my mountain. And it's just a upside down V. Now I'm going to do a really big mountain in the background. And then I want another little mountain. See how I'm stopping? Because I'm leaving space for another one. If you came all the way down here, you still want to overlap because these mountains here, the smaller ones, are in the foreground. The big mountain back there is back there in the background. So you still want these little ones to overlap it. But if you forget and bring this line all the way down, you can always erase that line and then put in your mountain. Okay. you could make these a snow-capped mountain, but I just want mine to be just mountains. I want summertime, no more snow. So I'm gonna make this a little darker so you guys can see this line. All right. Okay, now I'm gonna do, up in the upper right-hand corner, I'm gonna do a sun. So I'm just gonna do a curved line coming out and stop. And then I'm gonna do some different kind of, instead of just straight lines, you could do just straight lines coming off of it, following the curve, turning your paper. But I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna give it some more like dramatic curvy line coming off of it. And then I'm gonna do some short ones. And they don't all have to be exactly the same. In fact, I think I might have this one go this way. And then this one will go this way again. And then I'm gonna go back to this way. And I'm gonna stay in that direction. Just give it some swervy, curvy little lines. So that's our sun up in the corner here. And then down here in this bottom corner down here, I'm gonna put some stars. So it's just a top of a triangle, straight line, angled line going down, angled line going down, angled line going to the left, angled line going to the right, angled line coming up to the center, angled line going down. And you might have to adjust yours. I don't worry if my stars turn out perfect because I don't think they have to look perfect. I think you get the gist that they're there. So I'm gonna do 3 because I like things in odd numbers. I think that looks more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. And I'm gonna do 2 that are about the same size, one that's a little smaller. You could do them all the same size, all different sizes, whatever you wanna do in that corner. And then I'm gonna do a moon over here, but I'm gonna do a crescent moon. So I'm gonna do an angled line, almost like I'm gonna make a half circle and stop. And I'm gonna start at that point right there, follow the line, get a little wider, and then bring it and stop. And I'm gonna bring it connected there. And then up here, you don't have to have anything. If you can think of something else creative you wanna put up in this upper left-hand corner, cool, go for it. I think what I'm gonna do is have a flower coming out of my kind of my earth picture here in the center. So I'm just gonna do curved lines that start off the edge of the, ooh, no, I'm gonna do a tree. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna do curved lines following the curve of my circle, coming up. They don't touch, they're wider here, get a little more narrow. Then I'm gonna go above it, but not touching the top of my paper. And I'm going to kind of do a little etchy sketchy. I'm not gonna get real definite lines because I don't need them. And I'm just gonna kind of put a tree in. These are just curving down and to the left, curving down and to the right, curving downward lines. So I'm gonna have a little tree popping out there. Okay, I'm gonna add some trees on my middle section of my rolling hills right here because I feel like it needs a little something. So I'm gonna do something similar where I'm just gonna put a line though, and lines that go at an angle down and to the right, and on this side down and to the left. And I'm gonna do them in different sizes because I don't want them, and I'm gonna stagger them apart a little bit. You wanna space them apart. You don't want them in a perfect straight line. That'll look a little odd. So we're gonna stagger them this way. And just a few, I'm not gonna get carried away. You can add as many as you want. Put a little guy right there. Put a little tree over, this guy I'm gonna make bigger. He's a big tree. And I'll do a little tree back here. Maybe I'll do one more, like right here. Okay. You can even add another one in there if you want, whatever you want to do. So I'm gonna add one more little fish because I want him, I don't want the other fish to be by himself. Okay, so that's our initial drawing. Hopefully you guys can see it okay. Let me raise you guys up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. Alternate you down a little. Hopefully that helped a little bit. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my Sharpie, and I'm just taking a regular Sharpie. You can use a thin Sharpie, regular Sharpie. If you don't have a Sharpie to use or a permanent marker that you're allowed to use, then I would suggest a crayon in a really dark color, like black or dark blue or dark green. But Sharpie I like because it's just neutrally black. And I know that when I add my watercolor on this, it won't mess it up. So I'm just going to outline all of my lines, and I'm not worried if I follow them perfectly, because once my Sharpie dries a little bit, I can take my eraser and erase any pencil lines that I didn't follow perfectly. And the way I would do my tree here is I'm just going to go like this. And I'm not even following my original lines very well. They just kind of gave me a guideline, and that works. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and finish outlining this, and I'll be right back. Okay, now we've got everything outlined in Sharpie or black crayon, if that's what you have, and I erased all my pencil lines that were showing through. If you do it with a crayon, you won't be able to erase your pencil lines very easily because it will smear the crayon. And so that's why I highly recommend doing it in Sharpie or some permanent marker if you have one and you're allowed to use one. But if not, then be a little bit more careful outlining it with the black crayon so that you don't have to erase any pencil lines. So what I'm going to do is find myself a a paintbrush, yeah. Okay, and I've got my watercolors. If you don't have this many watercolors, that's okay. Usually if you have like Crayola ones, they have a palette off to the side. It's what they call the little indentations on the lid on the inside is your palette, and you could mix colors to make other colors. I have 2 things of water. One is always going to be my clean water that I dip into before I get my paint, before I dip it into my paint, and one is my to clean my brush water because it's going to get all yucky in color, and we don't want to take that yucky water and move it into our pretty colored paint. So the first thing I'm going to do is I think I'm going to work on probably the sun. So the sun I think I'm going to do in an orangey color. You could do a red, you could do whatever color you want. Let's see if I like this one. Ooh, that's pretty. Normally I would say you might want to tape your paper down on the edges with some painter's tape or artist tape, but you probably have painter's tape or masking tape available to you, and so that the edges don't start to curl up on you. I'm going to do it without, but I have done it a lot, so I feel comfortable doing it without. But otherwise, if your paper starts to curl up on the edges too much, you tape it down. It'll leave a little edge that is unpainted when you're done, but that's okay. Still looks pretty. It kind of gives it its own natural frame. And now if you look, you can see I have 2 different colors going on. Why do I have 2 different colors going on? Because I have more paint and less water in this part than I do this part. But I want them to look the same, so I'm going to add a little bit more paint into this. You always have to add water into your watercolor, otherwise it won't come off on your paintbrush. That's why it's watercolor. So I probably could have used a smaller paintbrush here. Having a hard time staying in these little doodads, but that's okay. It will still look pretty. And I'm moving a lot faster than I normally would. Be sure that you take your time. Try to stay in the lines. It'll look a lot nicer. I'm going to go ahead and do the moon and the stars in the bottom. So I think I'm going to go with a nice bright yellow for my stars. And I think I need to get myself a different paintbrush because this one's really, really big. So I'm going to switch. If you have different sizes of paintbrushes, it's very helpful. Because some spots you want a big paintbrush, like the background, and then there's other spots like these little stars that I would want to use a smaller brush so I don't have to worry so much about going outside of my lines too easily. And like I said, I'm going a little faster than I want you guys to go. Take your time. I just know you don't want to sit here and watch me paint this for hours. I think I'm going to do a brighter orange and a less of a red orange for my moon. Do it any color you want. And if you don't want to have a moon and stars, maybe you want to have a planet or something in the corner. Heck, even a spaceship would be kind of cute. Whatever you decide you want to do. And I just cleaned my brush in the wrong water. Hopefully that won't cause me issues. Okay, now I'm going to do the tree up here in the corner, and I'm going to do it kind of a dark green. It's not as dark as I thought it would be, but still pretty. And I'm just kind of brushing it in there because I'm not too worried about how perfect it is. And then I'm going to clean my brush and do a brown tree trunk. Okay. Now I'm gonna, I'm not gonna do my background just yet. I think I'm gonna switch in gears and go to my, my earth picture here. And so I'm gonna start by, I'm going to switch my paintbrush again because the ones I want are way over there, but this will work. Okay, so I want to blend my background, which is the sky color back in here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to take a little bit of water on a clean paintbrush. I'm not going to use a lot, and I want to dampen my background a little. And I'm just going to start on this side because if I go all the way over here, this will dry before I get to that side. So I'm just going to start there and with that much. Then I'm going to take a yellow and I'm going to get my yellow. And of course I added water to the yellow. And then so the water in my yellow is now going onto the water on my page. And I'm going to start at the top and bring it across horizontally and bring it down until it basically faded away. Like there's very little color down here. There's a little, but not very much. It's mostly up here at the top. Then I'm going to clean my paintbrush and get a little bit of water on it and switch to a pinky color. You know, I don't know what kind of pink you got, but I got pretty bright pink. And I'm going to start in the middle where it started to fade from the yellow, and I'm going to work my way down. Or you could start with the pink down here and work your way up, whichever you prefer. Because now I've got this perfect line there, and I don't like that perfect line, so I'm going to rinse off my brush. And I rinsed off my brush and I squeegee off my brush by grabbing it between my fingers and pulling the water off. And then I'm going to go and wipe across that line. And then I squeegeed it off again. And I'm going to go back and just lightly bring that yellow down into that pink. Because I want my background to look like a sunset or a sunrise. So I want them to blend into each other a little bit. Now I'm gonna, with a clean brush, go ahead and dampen, and we don't want a sopping wet. We don't want a puddle of water on your paper. And hopefully you're using either cardstock or watercolor paper. Printer paper, notebook paper won't work very well. It will probably end up with a hole in it pretty fast. Now I get my paintbrush wet and I go into the yellow again. So now it's the wet yellow on my paintbrush going into the wet background. I start at the top and I want to kind of follow it down going horizontally like this. And then I just kind of lightly keep going till it starts to fade out as I get near my my mountains and my rolling hills. And I'm going to clean my brush off again. I'm going to get that same pink color. This time I'm going to start down here, I think. I want to see what happens and work my way up. Maybe it'll make it so I don't have to fade out that line so much. And I just go into the yellow, bring the yellow down, it doesn't matter, going across horizontally. I want a little, just a smidge more right in here. There we go. Still feel like that line's a little sharp, so I rinsed off my brush. I squeegee it off by squeezing it between my fingers and just lightly, so the brush is just barely damp, and lightly go over that area and blend it in. Okay, now I'm gonna kind of do the same thing with the mountains, but I'm going to, I'm not gonna use two colors. The mountain in the background, so the big one way back here, because the other two come in front of it, it's going to be the lightest color because it's in the background. As it comes forward to you, the color should get darker. So I'm going to do the same thing, and with a clean damp brush, I'm going to lightly dampen my paper in that big mountain, just the big mountain. And then I'm going to take, and I'm going to use a light blue. Now, if you don't have multiple colors of blue, it just means that you have to water down your blue a little bit more. And so it has more water in your paintbrush and less color. But if you have other colors, you don't have to worry about that as much, which is why I like to have lots of colors, to be honest. Okay, so I don't even mind that he has like little lines coming in because it makes him look a little more textured, like he's a mountain. Okay, now I'm going to clean off my brush, do the same thing with a clean damp brush, and lightly dampen the one on the mountain on the left. He's in closer to the foreground. He's in the middle ground. So he's gonna be a darker blue. So I'm gonna take a darker blue this time and bring it from the top and work my way down to the bottom. I like watercolor because it spreads around real easily, which kind of lays on the paper in different ways that gives itself its own texture. You don't want to normally have it go on real thick and become opaque. That if you want that, then you should work with acrylics or oil paints or something. Okay, I'm going to do the same color over here, I think. So I'm going to clean brush, and it's damp, and I'm going to go ahead and dampen this mountain. I should have connected that black line right there, but that's okay. Then I'm going to take that same dark color. I may even add just a little bit of an even darker color in it, or you could just make sure you have a little bit more paint and a little less water to get it even darker. But definitely want water. Can't do it without water. Okay, so there's my mountains. I'm going to clean my brush off, and I'm going to do the green rolling hills. So again, I'm going to just lightly dampen my my rolling hills. I'm going to go ahead and do this one as well because I'm going to move a little bit quicker. Again, you guys don't need to. I'm just doing it for time purposes. That didn't even make sense. Okay, and now I'm going to take a green, and I'm going to just go over it with my damp green brush. So a little bit of water with my green paint over my slightly damp paper. I have to add a little more water into my green. I want it to spread and kind of almost have a translucent look to it. Now this one I'm going to do a slightly darker green because it's a little bit closer to the foreground. It's not in the background. It's kind of still in the middle ground, but it looks it's still ahead of that one, so I want it to be a little darker. Oops, went out of the line. Yikes, that's what happens when you hurry. Just kind of brush that away. Get a little water on it. Gotta fix my boo-boo. Grab myself a paper towel. Okay, as good as it's gonna get. All right, like I said, you guys won't rush through it as fast as I do, so you should have an easier time staying in the lines. Right. That's why we don't hurry through art. You're supposed to enjoy the process, not rush through it like it's a punishment. Okay, now I'm gonna go into this section here, which I think I called my wheat fields, my rolling hills, and I'm gonna do those a yellow color. I'm not going to dampen the background or the paper, excuse me. I'm just going to put water into the paint and pull it in because I want it a little bit brighter color. I'm still obviously using water in my paint. I still want it to have kind of that translucent look, not opaque or solid looking like acrylic paint. It's watercolor. We want it to be smooth and flowy. Okay. Okay. Last one to do in here is the ocean. So on this one, I am going to very carefully kind of try to work around adding just a little bit of water. I hardly have any water on my brush. I'm just barely getting the paper damp just around my little, I want to call him a crab because that's what he looks like, but he was supposed to be an octopus. I need to look up how to, what an octopus looks like. You could have other things down here too. You don't have to do exactly what I did. You could have a shark. You could have coral. You could just have a school of fish, whatever you want to do in there. If you really don't want anything in there, then don't put anything in there. It's your painting. It's your drawing. You do what you want. You have fun with it. Okay, now I'm going to take the darkest blue I have, and I'm just going to drop that in there. If you want to get really creative while it's still wet, you could even sprinkle very carefully just in that ocean area with some plain salt or some kosher salt, any kind of salt really. But you probably want to try to keep it in your ocean. And it would give it a little bit more of an oceany look. But for time's sake, I'm just going to kind of go through real quick but we want the ocean to have those different variations and values of the blue. So that's why I'm just kind of dropping some color in and letting it be a little darker here, a little lighter there. Especially as it goes down near the bottom of the ocean. I would assume it's probably gets a little darker down there. Okay, well, you get the idea. So I'm gonna pause, be right back, and finish doing my painting, and you can see the finished product. Okay, so here is my finished product. Go through it a lot slower than I did. Try to stay in your lines better. Using different size paintbrushes is really helpful. I wasn't very prepared in that way, and I should have grabbed some more paintbrushes. So if you have a really small one, a medium size, and a large, it would be really helpful for you. If the colors aren't as intense as you want them, let it dry and add a little bit more color on top. Make sure you always put water into the color. You need at least 50% color, 50% water. If you get more color than water, it's gonna go on real cakey and yucky. That's not how watercolor works very well. Make sure you clean your brushes really good, let it dry. If it still has a little bit of rippliness to it when it's completely dry, stack a couple heavy books on there, leave them overnight, and it'll flatten that back out for you. Get creative with it. You don't have to do it exactly like I did. This was just an idea. You can change it up, different colors, and don't worry about it being perfect. This is just a fun Earth Day project. Have fun with it. Post your pictures in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys do, and have fun with it.